Today we're going to talk about giving feedback, which is surprisingly one of the biggest things that managers forget to do, but it's also one of the most important things that they need to do. So effective feedback focuses on the specific behavior. It's going to reinforce good behavior and redirect poor behaviors, and it's given at the right time and stated respectfully. So you want to make sure that if that employee, for example, they might be having a conversation with the customer and you don't like what they're doing or the way they sold something or whatever the fact may be, but it's not a good time to interrupt that employee while talking to the customer most of the time, unless it's like they're doing something really serious. But you'll want to pull them aside after the fact and have a conversation with them. You really don't want to embarrass them in front of everybody. And same with positive feedback even, still, you don't want to interrupt that conversation with the customer. Talk to them immediately after. But with the negative feedback especially, make sure you have those conversations in private because, again, we don't want to embarrass anybody. Our goal is to make them better. So it's not to cause a scene. So with feedback, it's always very important to support it. And so, for example, you might give an employee feedback about something. Maybe they didn't do a very good job at cleaning the floors one week. And so in a couple weeks, maybe you look at it again and then you reevaluate. Did they do a better job or does it still need some work? And then you have to have that conversation again. And then that way the employee knows that you're still watching, that you still want them to improve, and that you're going to work together to make this better. Sometimes you do also have to document things. It's good to document good stuff because then when it comes to their performance review, you have very specific feedback to give them. But it's also important to document negative events so that you can move toward progressive discipline if necessary, and in case there's ever a legal issue, you have something to back up that, hey, we terminated this person due to XYZ, and it was very concrete that, they had 3 write-ups, they had a lot of warning, they had plenty of time to improve, and they just didn't. So it just wasn't working out, and we had to let them go. But it's also very important for the employee. Again, we don't want them to be blindsided by the fact that, oh, hey, Joe, you're let go. We want to make sure that we have given them ample opportunity to improve and told them how and worked on an action plan with them. So then that way no one's really surprised if that does happen, which we hope it doesn't. And another thing you want to do is make sure that you've set clear expectations up front. And that's one reason why we like to get people to sign their job description and read through it like on their first day so that they know exactly what our expectations are for the job and so that they know how they can be a good performer in the position. You also want to have an engaging and motivating environment and then provide training and support. So sometimes the employee might have the will to be really great, but they might not have the skill. They might not know exactly what the sales process is for a leasing agent, for example. And so maybe they have potential and they're really confident and you can tell that there's something there, but they just don't know the process. So you might have to do some more training so that you can get them up to speed on exactly what you want. One technique to giving feedback is called the state and wait, which basically says that you state the behavior that you want to change and then wait. It's kind of like giving an employee an uncomfortable silence right after that feedback so they can really think about it and think about the need to change. I think this is especially important when you've had this conversation with this employee multiple times and you really want them to know the seriousness of it and kind of feel a little bit awkward. So, for example, you might say, I noticed that you were 15 minutes late to work this morning. And then you do nothing. You just look at them. Before you can get together an action plan for improvement with your employee, you first have to get them to accept the feedback. And so sometimes you might have to clarify things if there's confusion. For example, with the late scenario, an employee might say, oh, and this is their first week, so it's perfectly legitimate. I thought I was supposed to be here at 8:30, so when I came here at 8:15, I actually thought I was early. I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't have the right information. And so you might say, oh, I'm sorry, I must have given you the wrong schedule this week. Let me give you the correct schedule. In the future, we do expect you to be here at 8 o'clock. We do expect you to be on time. It is very important for the business. I'm sure you know that. And this was your first time, so I'm sure it won't become a habit, and I hope that we won't have to have this conversation again in the future. Sometimes the employee might also be resistant. So they might give some sort of excuse. For example, maybe they are in housekeeping and they didn't do a very good job cleaning the floor. Like, you could still see a bunch of mud and stuff on the floor. And so you confront the employee and ask them, hey, what's up with this mud on the floor? And then they might say, oh, well, Joe didn't do a very good job cleaning the floor last night, so I didn't think I had to do a very good job this morning cleaning the floor. And so you'll have to say, Joe's really a separate issue here. I will have a conversation with him, but we're talking about your performance right now. And so, as you can see, there is a lot of mud spots on the floor. It's very important that the floors are very clean, because we are running a business, and it is a direct reflection of us when the public comes into the mall, that they want to see a clean environment. And what's in it for you is, if we can continue to have a clean environment and provide good customer service and keep people coming back, business will be booming, and it's going to hopefully be able to pay back to you eventually and provide more growth opportunities for you in the future if the company continues to grow. Now, if we continue to leave the floors messy, then people will stop coming, and then you might not have a job. So the best thing to do is make sure that we do clean the floors properly, and that's how you impact the big picture here. And so I hope that in the future we don't have to have this conversation again, and I'm going to follow back with you in a couple of weeks to make sure that the cleanliness of the floors is a little bit more up to my standards. The sandwich method is a good method to keep things positive, and it's basically sandwiching like a negative feedback in between two positives. So let's say you have a leasing agent that's new, and they're doing a really great job at asking a lot of open-up questions and finding out some good information, but you notice that they're struggling with closing the deal. And so you might say, Jack, you did such a great job yesterday. You asked all these open-up questions with that customer that I watched you with, and you found out a lot of great information. However, I did notice that you were struggling a little bit on closing the deal. So remember to just be confident, and we're going to practice a lot as well on how to close the deal, so that in the future that you can close every deal, because you're so great at doing those follow-up questions, and getting those questions to turn into a sale is really going to get you to get the whole process and to get more sales every time. So we're going to keep practicing that, and I know you're going to do awesome.